So the battleground is very, very different to how it was pre-COVID and even 2 to 3 years ago. Content is now such a huge part of the armory of any sporting entity. It's only getting more and more important and influential in the world of football. So let's get some key insights on content. Chairing the discussion for us, CEO and CTO at FanFest, Adam Jones, and his guests. We have two of them, one in person and one virtual. Founder and CEO at Malaika, Noella Corsares-Musunka, and joining us by video link, Director and Professor of Eurasian Sports at EM Lyon Business School, Professor Simon Chadwick. Adam, great to meet you. Noella, lovely to meet you as well. And Simon, wherever you are, virtually, I expect you will appear on my screen very, very shortly. Good to see you as well. Adam, the floor is yours.
Hey, everyone. So we have a tech guy, nonprofit, and hopefully soon an academic, whenever he pops in. So this should be fun. I think one thing that we can all agree on, though, is as we think about the topic of this panel, using content to do more, sports is not just about content. It's about the community around the content. And so the way I want to kind of walk through this is, how sports content has, at the end of the day, enhanced community over the last 12 to 18 months. Energizing, engaging community, growing community, and generating value from community. When we launched FanFest and thinking about just in terms of the engaging community piece, in the heart of the pandemic, in August 2020, and one of our first partners, Paris Saint-Germain, they were using content to celebrate health workers, actually. Some of our partners in the US were using their content to tell fans to stay home and cheer from home. Simon, yeah, sorry. Starting with you, how can sports content going forward be even more effective in this kind of bigger than sport messaging, whether it's promoting social change, promoting things like saying no to racism. How can the entire sports industry, the leagues, the clubs, the federations, kind of use content to kind of energize their community and drive change that way?
Mouth appears to be moving, but I hope some words are coming out and that you can hear me in Spain.
Good to go.
Perfect. So thanks for the thumbs up. I think the first thing that I would like to say is that sport has always been incredibly powerful, because sport, at its very origins, really came out of the community and was formed by the first leagues, the first teams, the first people who played sport. They were part of communities, and so we shouldn't lose sight of sport has always been powerful in a way that perhaps other industrial sectors haven't. But clearly, in this era, the notion of engagement and of fans and of content clearly has changed, and I feel I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it. I spoke at the event last year, and I said, well, this notion of engagement, really, we need to think about it a little bit more, and we need to understand it better, and we need to stop using it quite so flippantly and generally. And I'm going to say it again. I guess this is the only thing I've got to say. I'm going to talk about engagement again, because in many ways, it's very easy to engage people. You could argue that I'm engaging people now. Just this middle-class, middle-aged white guy sat talking. I'm engaging people because people are listening to me. But I think engagement is much more complex than that. And I think especially when we begin to talk about purpose or about social change or raising awareness or building influence, essentially what we're looking at is we're looking to change people's attitudes, and in a good way, in a positive way, but we're also looking to change behaviours as well. And so when it comes to what we're doing with content and what potentially we might do with content, it's very important to have at the very heart of what we create this premise of this will lead to a change in attitudes and a change in behaviours. If I could just continue slightly, because this then leads into, well, what kind of content do you generate? Well, the kind of content that you generate, I think, in my experience, and with due respect to people who are there in the audience, sometimes the content is generated by people who look like me. And hopefully I'm a good guy, and hopefully I've got a balanced view of the world. But I think that we've got to ensure that the people who are generating content, particularly from inside clubs and leagues and associations and so forth, that they really understand the nature of attitudinal and behavioural change that we've talked about, but at the same time that they really understand what truly engages people and what is going to make a difference, and really what reflects the lives, the concerns, the hopes, the aspirations of the people to whom these communications, this content is targeted.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a great point around, through the entire stack of using content to promote the bigger than sport message, making sure that the producers of said content are also kind of representative of the audience. Noella, you've been incredibly successful in leveraging sports content, actually sports partners, to affect change all over the world, especially on the ground. And especially over the last 18 months, how have you seen, or what success case have you seen around sports content being able to affect change with the kind of bigger than sport message?
So we work differently in in a village where in communities where there's no water, no access to electricity. So we think that when we had the closure of the COVID, about closing the school, closing a community center that we built partially with FIFA, how the community was affected to not have access to sports. So we needed to create in a different way access to hygiene resources, messages to tell them stay home, stay safe. You cannot tell them to do social distances because they live 8-10 people in a small houses, but you can really tell them be careful, wash your hands constantly, go to wells. There's no running water in communities where we work, so we built more than 21 wells, and we make sure that we had enough resources and soap for them. But sport is a very, very key component in rural villages because they don't have TV, they don't have iPhone, they don't have all this luxury that we have. So where they gather outside playing sport, playing football, and where they're saying what's going on in the world. This is where the message comes. So it's very important that sports still have to exist even in a pandemic because that's where the community meet and that's where we can leverage to give them key messages.
What has been, I'd say over the last year, one of the most successful examples?
It was amazing to reopen back all the programs. We lost 5 people when we closed down all our programs, 3 students and 2 staff, because when they come to our programs, we evaluate their health. If they have any issues, we look after them. But when everything was closed down, it was very, very hard. So to have back all the programs running, to kind of be able to monitor the health and speaking with the community and what was the challenges and how we can help them more and to have them back. And 98% of the people we're serving came back either to the school or the community center to come to study. And the pitch that we built with FIFA and Street Football World is a very important place because we drive them to come to do sport, but then we obligate them to go to classes, to go to study, to learn to read, write, numeracy, literacy, digital skills, and entrepreneurship.
And that's a great segue into using sports content, switching gears into not just energizing the existing community, but even, growing the community.
Yeah, because all these kids, they come, these youth, and they just want to spend 6-7 hours playing football. And we say, no way. You play 1 hour, then it's time to go to study. And actually, they love it. And this year, we're working with Caterpillar Foundation on creating technical classes, mechanic and electricity, because 95% of the youth in the village don't have jobs. So it's really important that we can offer them some skills and being able to put them on the job market.
Simon, one way that we've seen our partners use sports content to grow community, I think the overarching theme is around, personalization. So whether it's, the localizing of content to specific regions, to creating new opportunities for interactivity and for fans to literally participate in the content. Through our partners here, Booker Stadium was also presenting, even within La Liga, clubs like Espanyol have created opportunities for fans to literally play FIFA, against members of the club. During the recent La Vuelta tournament, cycling tournament, during the Paralympics, even during the Euros this summer, clubs were using and partners were using FanFest to let fans participate in a live press conference and ask questions to athletes after they participated, right? So, the sports world, we often get criticized for being behind the curve, but I think, as a potential upside from the last 18 months, you've seen this dramatic acceleration of, letting fans not just watch and not just like, but be part of the content. I think, I probably wouldn't be in this chair if half this room didn't believe that, the whole point of, FanFest live shows is a fan can go from seeing a show to being in the show in 60 seconds. How do you see this playing out now, in football, beyond football, and especially over the coming years, now that we're kind of returning to a new normal?
I'm actually going to go back to ancient history, to 2013. And I remember being at an event in Doha, in Qatar, and a guy gave a presentation about a football that his company had developed. And I think will.i.am, if I remember correctly, will.i.am had actually invested into this project. And the amazing thing about this football is that it had a mechanism inside that could capture kinetic energy. And so as kids kicked this ball around, it captured the kinetic energy. And so at night, and what they were doing is they were using this in villages in certain parts of Africa, is the kids could kick the ball around in the daytime, capture the kinetic energy, then at night they could use that kinetic energy because you could fix a light into the football, and so whilst they were doing their homework, they could use this light because there was no electricity in the village. But then at the same time, what there also was is each of the different groups of kids that were using these balls, it would actually capture the amount of time they'd spent kicking the ball around. And they were producing league tables via an app of who'd been engaged in the most physical activity. Now this example, as I say, this is ancient history, this is back in 2013. But I still like the principles of this particular project because it's not just about digital development, it's also about addressing real social issues like the absence of electricity, which prevents kids from learning. It's also about ensuring that young people engage in healthy, active lifestyles. And yet at the same time, it's playing to those, very kind of basic instincts. It's really just good fun to kick a ball around. And so as we move forward from here, I think what's really important for content generators to think about is, going back to the very first point that I made, is thinking in terms of changing people's attitudes in a positive way and changing behaviors in a positive way, having a purpose, solving a problem, meeting a need, instead of just, and I think, what I would observe, and I've seen over the pandemic period, lots of great stuff, but also I think lots of not just football clubs but organizations generally throwing out content to try and engage people without really understanding what that means and without really having an end goal in mind. And so I think one of the fortunate things for us as people with an interest in purpose and with social contribution is that we now know, whether it's this football project back in 2013 or getting people to stay home during the pandemic or enticing or enabling or including people in health and physical promotion activities. This for me really is the way forward.
And I couldn't agree more about just that fundamental concept that the era of, chasing likes and views as being the definition of success around growing community, both fans and I think certainly our partners, but broadly the sports industry is hungry for that deeper connection, especially kind of outside the walls of the stadium. Noella, what specific either sporting entities or examples over the last, either last year or even looking forward, can you point to that really helped you, or maybe one of your specific partners? I know you've worked with both federations and leagues and teams. Really help catalyze and grow this community of future leaders that ultimately you aim to cultivate.
To come back first, it's amazing to speak in a stadium.
And it's sunny.
And it's nice weather today. My son is a big fan of football, so we watch most of the games. So today I can tell him, hey, I'm on a stadium. It's been amazing actually. In 2013 when the World Cup was organized in South Africa, FIFA decided with different partners to build 20 communities all over Africa. So they partners with us, Malaika, and we built this community center. And it's really good on the way. We have partners like FIFA, Street Football, Common Goal, Laureus, UFA Foundation, all these are entities that work and that really want a drive with social issues and really impact communities that are underprivileged. And we see that the impact too in the village where we're working, girls were not playing football or mothers were not playing football. And we emphasize the key message and to drive the girls to come to play. And more than 10 girls now have been selected for a football club in the Congo. Mm-hmm. But it was funny because the first time we got mothers playing football, kick a ball, the fathers and the youth were laughing. But now they love it. Every Friday afternoon is a match, mothers against mothers. And it's very important how you change a stereotype of a village and of a community and how you grow with them.
Yeah, certainly using sport and competitive spirit to evolve perception around, even fundamentally what women are capable of at global scale has certainly been a theme throughout the last 24 hours here, and broadly, I think, in the sports industry. So that's a great example.
And girls like the physical activities because it's not only to play football, it's to have the spirit of being competitive, to have skills, but to learn. Mm-hmm. You have to be to eat healthy. But first of all, where we're working, maybe these kids they eat twice a week. So we make sure at our school we give them breakfast and lunch that are able to learn not only in classroom, but are able to learn too and have physical education on a sport pitch or even running in the village.
Mm-hmm. We have a. Sorry, I don't know. Simon was saying.
So yeah, I wanted to mention this as an example. Everybody knows it. But I think this was actually symbolic of a much wider movement in football over the last 12 months, particularly in the UK. And this is Marcus Rashford. And we've talked about engagement, we've talked about influence, and obviously we've got to acknowledge the incredible work that Marcus Rashford has been doing, particularly in influencing government policy, but also I think in terms of if we take a look at this individual, through his work, he's now been able to build a network of commercial partners with some of the big, for example, food retailers in Britain. And for those of you, I guess everybody's familiar, but just in case people aren't familiar, essentially Marcus Rashford is campaigning against food poverty and is ensuring that those who don't have access to nutritious food on a regular basis get the opportunity to eat properly. And the government has made a couple of U-turns on policy as a consequence of Rashford. But as I say, I think Rashford in many ways was the focal node in a much bigger network, because what I think we've also got to acknowledge is the fine work, in terms of content, the fine work that a lot of football clubs did, as I said, particularly in Britain, around food banks. Now, I've donated to food banks for many years, but I think what I noticed last year, or certainly over the last 12 months, is this rise in the consciousness amongst people, particularly football fans, of number one, the need for food banks, and number two, the need to contribute to food banks. So again, going back to content, I've seen some really deeply affecting social media content around food banks. And as I say, for me, that's really important because it is engaging, but it's engaging in the way that it's changing people's attitudes and it is changing people's behaviours. The other thing, if I could just mention, or just say, in response to something that Noella said, I think what's really amazing about the things Noella is talking about is it's tackling big issues, big problems. And so for the people who are sat there in the audience today who are perhaps involved in this type of work or are content generators, I'd invite you to think about how the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals can help shape the content that people in football generate. And for people who are not familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, hey, I'm an academic, so your homework for tonight is to go home and find out what the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are. But if you do know what they are, for me, these kind of positive changes in society and the world in general are really, really important, I think, in generating content.
Appreciate the homework assignment.
We're working towards the sustainable goals.
Yeah, no,
a few of them: education, hygiene, sports, equality, gender. So I know Noella.
Okay, so gold star for you, Noella.
Kind of switching gears to the kind of the third piece that I wanted to address around doing more with sports content. It's around and community, vis-a-vis community, and it's commercialized, or creating value from community, broadly defined. Again, Noella, from your perspective, creating value is probably a very different meaning, i.e. truly saving the world through this next generation of leaders. Different meaning than maybe many in this room, which is about making money from the community, right? But to kick off, wanted to ask, how
you can make money and give back to the underprivileged.
Which,
perfect.
Again, this has been a model you've perfected in many ways. How have you balanced? That's where I wanted to start off. Is how have you balanced your strategic imperatives and your strategic goals around what you want to accomplish, vis-a-vis your partners, right? In partnering with you. We have one partner in common, Manchester City, for instance. I know on your website there's a recent case study.
Which one?
Manchester City, I believe.
Yes, we work a lot with them. I spoke at the Youth Leader Summit a few weeks ago, actually.
Yep, exactly. So I mean, you can use that as an example, or other partners. They have goals, you have goals. How have you successfully kind of brought those together to ultimately create value from community through sports content?
I think all this entity has a CSR program and is to enter towards their program. But me, I don't just go to an organization and go towards what they want. It has to be stick with our mission and our vision and the work that we're doing and where we're working. There's a lot of things that doesn't link with where we're working because there's no internet, there's no electricity, all our program on solar panel. So we're working with a different reality, and it's how really to empower this generation to be educated, to use sport, to be healthy, to reach a goal, to finish their school, and to look after their family and have a ripple effect in the village. Mm-hmm. But you have, yes, of course, when you get donation from entities like FIFA, all of them, you have to do grant application, reporting, they come on the ground, and etc. And it's good, we need all of them, but it's important that they understand too that we're working with human lives. Boys that are orphans, girls that don't have any dreams. We work with a girl that was Divina. She was coming to do sports at a center, and she got pregnant. And she was completely rejected by the community because she was 18, and they didn't accept her to come to play again at 2-3 months pregnant. So it was a lot of messages and a lot of gathering with the all elders community and the youth community to say, it's okay to be pregnant, we cannot reject her. Mm-hmm. And now she got a baby, we train her, we pay her school, and she's a teacher at our center. And we try to teach a lot of peer teachers that go to different areas. We distributed over 14,000 malaria nets because so many children were dying under 5 years old of malaria and was a problem that we needed to tackle. So we really working for the community and understanding their needs and assessing every year if our mission is still on lighting with their issues and their problem is in the community. And then we bring these problems to world donors to say that's where we have to work and we need your help to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the other end of the spectrum, money does talk.
Exactly.
And, I know...
But when you save one life, money talk and have a kind of a feeling.
What I hear all the time is, the tech stuff is cool, virtual this, interactive that, but unless we can turn it into a sponsorable asset, it's like, how do we get there? How do we get there? And that's one of the things that we've really focused on is kind of interactive live fan content that ultimately clubs or federations can sponsor. But even, I'd say this wouldn't be a World Football Summit 2021 panel if we didn't talk about kind of even new ways to create value from the community through content, which is increasingly, again, crypto-based. So whether it's NFTs or whether it's, we're all literally wearing an NFT company right now. The startup of, top innovative startup last year won an award, crypto company. Simon, where do you see this going, this intersection of community, content, and increasingly crypto or finance broadly? And there's a lot of conversation around, okay, you're monetizing fandom. Where do we see the upside? Where's the value creation? Where's kind of the positive angle, especially over the next decade?
I'll come on to that in a moment. If I could, again, just go back a little. The first thing to say, and again, this is an acknowledgement for our community, is a lot of the people I meet in football are actually decent people. They're caring people, they're thoughtful people, they don't just want to make money, they do actually want to serve a social purpose and do good things as well. And we're talking about some of the highest paid players in the world who embrace this, and people who sit on boards of cryptocurrency businesses, in many cases they're actually decent people, they're good people. So I think we do have to trust ourselves to do the right thing, because I think in many cases we often do the right thing. I think the other thing I would say secondly is, I'm a firm believer in doing well whilst doing good. They're not mutually exclusive. Making money and doing good things at the same time, they're not mutually exclusive. And my view is as a sport business, if you're doing well and you're growing, you're expanding, you're creating jobs, you're giving people opportunities, you're generating tax revenues, and so I guess what I'm saying is we shouldn't beat ourselves up too much that we're not making a contribution and we're not serving a purpose. When it comes to NFTs and cryptocurrency, and so forth, for me, what I find very interesting at the moment is who's investing. And who owns the businesses that are driving this sector. And what I would like to see is different ownership forms come to the fore, so that it's not just private equity investors, possibly private equity investors from affluent parts of the world who are driving this. I would like to see more collective forms of ownership, different forms of ownership whereby cause-related groups can also be part of the action and can also be involved in the process of creating value and realizing revenues. And I think as well, you can imagine that fans ultimately, we have charity NFTs. So you buy your soccer club NFTs because you want to vote on what the next jersey should look like or what the next sponsor should be. But why can't that be linked to social purpose? Why can't that be linked to cause? Why can't fans be given the opportunity to buy cryptocurrency, which they then use as the basis for making charitable contributions? So, having listened to the earlier discussion, we're during the very early stages of a revolution, and inevitably these forms of engagement and of consuming sport will normalise, and we'll see new models of operation begin to emerge. But I think it's important for us to kind of ensure that it's not just about providing financial return to private equity investors. I think there is so much more that we can do in terms of enabling giving, promoting democratic involvement, ensuring that sport serves a social purpose, and going right back to the very start, trying to make sure that we change attitudes in a positive way and that people begin to behave in a more positive way.
Yeah, and just to kind of put a pin in it, I mean, ultimately, we're incredibly bullish about it having just this massive amplification opportunity in terms of just growing the community. We've been talking about community this whole hour. I mean, the idea, so currently, like our partners are hosting halftime shows with fans in like 100 countries, right, from their website. And so there's already that participation element. You know, imagine if they could influence like governance decisions or like what their team is actually doing, actually participate even more deeply thanks to these new technologies, better or more explicitly represent their ownership or be able to own a piece of the match that they're watching while they're talking about the match on their team's website. Like, so there's all kinds of really, really cool applications that we're really kind of bullish on. I believe they're about to yank us off the stage because we're keeping everyone from lunch. So, well, apparently we have 2 more minutes.
And we see in communities, because there's so many conflict zones, that the sport and the power of a ball can put people together, and really we can generate this message: peace, 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 peace. But in all these communities, one of the footballers will come to play in one of these stadiums, and that's where the money can be made and giving back to the communities.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of finally, again, one cool thing about this emerging, complement of technologies that are getting pretty wide adoption by sports fans, et cetera, is maybe over time, it won't just be you needing to partner with, I'll just say Man City, but a big club. There are, I'm sure, tons of fans of that club that would also love to participate and get excited about it.
Sadio Mane is fantastic.
Exactly.
What he's doing. He comes from a small village in Senegal.
Exactly.
And how he's developing the village and giving back. It's a real good example.
And so making that, digitally native and basically easier for more of the world to be able to participate into, I think is also pretty exciting.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. We hope we can see you soon in real.
Yeah, let's link up in Paris.
Virtually.
Noella, make sure your homework's ready for when I see you. Okay?
Oh my goodness.
I have homework for you too.
Oof.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Give it up for Adam, Noella, and also for Simon, who's joined us virtually for this last session. Lovely, lovely sentiments at the end. Doing good as you can do well. And also, community. Very well chaired. Thank you very much indeed to you both. And thank you to Simon over at the EM Lyon Business School. Right, time for lunch. Get off my stage. I'm only joking. Thank you so much, Noella. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you again, by the way.